is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam. I hope everyone's doing fantastic tonight. Hope you guys are ready for New Year's. Happy New Year's to each and every one of you guys. I know it's New Year's Eve or whatever, but hope you guys are having a great Tuesday and looking forward to maybe having some sort of celebration tonight and or tomorrow. And happy 2025 almost to each and every one of you guys. So speaking of 2025, we are hopping into a full 2025 fantasy football mock draft. Way too early, but we're going to do it. You guys kept asking. We've done one or two things over the past few days since the 2024 fantasy season has concluded, and you guys wanted more of this, and some of you guys asked for a full mock draft. So that is what we're going to do tonight. But of course, outside of that, if you guys are playing in week 18 for the 2024 fantasy football season, then please, if you guys have any fantasy football questions, let me know. Anything that I can do to help you guys if you are still playing through week 18. I'm happy to help you guys with that as well. Although it's a tough week, there's a reason why most people, only play through week 17. But if you guys are playing through week 18, I'm happy to help you guys. And outside of that, we'll talk a little bit about, the NFL playoffs, all that stuff, and anything else that you guys want to bring up, any dynasty questions, any rookie outlooks, anything like that, as we start to kind of prepare to switch into dynasty content here on the channel in the off season. We'll be getting into some more of that, which you guys will start to see over the next week or so. So if you guys have any dynasty questions, any topics that you guys want to bring up in terms of dynasty, you guys can do that as well. But we'll be talking a lot of redraft tonight as well, based on what happens in this mock draft. So a lot to get into tonight, and we're going to hang out. And like usual, we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk some fantasy football. There's 3 spots left in the draft. No random order. I don't think there's really any reason to do a random order. So whatever pick or, whatever spot you guys take is what you're going to get. And that link is in the chat for anyone who does want to join. So just 3 spots left. And once the draft is full, we will go ahead and kick off the draft. So I have it set right now to 9 total rounds. I don't think that we're going to need to go past 9 rounds. So if anyone's curious, that will give you 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex spot, and 2 bench spots. But I think that'll give us a good enough look for now. I have been working on, you guys saw today that I released the first 4 rounds of a 2025 mock draft, and I was working on going through 8 rounds. And once you get to kind of like round 7, like mid round 7, becomes a bit difficult. So, I mean, there's plenty of discussion and players you could choose, but it does get a little bit difficult once we get to like round 7. So I think 9 rounds is enough. And I do see a good question in the chat, and that's from Bryce. What player are we using for Genty? If you guys want to draft any rookie during this, just put it in the chat, select a kicker. Oh, so you know what? That's a good point, actually. Just select any kicker, and then you can put it in the YouTube chat or the sleeper chat what rookie you are drafting. So let me add kickers back in. That will add an extra round to this, but we all know what's going on here. So give me 1 quick second here. Okay, so just take any kicker off the board, and then like I said, you guys can just let me know what rookie you're drafting, and we will go from there. So we have 3 spots still. Once those spots get filled up, we'll get going. So, all right. In terms of news for today, there's like not a whole lot, although it does appear as if Brock Purdy is okay. Purdy's going to survive. It looks like he has suffered a right elbow contusion with nerve inflammation, but no long-term concern for Brock Purdy, which is good, right? Some of us are Brock Purdy fans, but outside of that, I don't think we have anything that we really need to touch on. We know the schedule for this week. We're going to have a lot of meaningless games, and we're going to have some very meaningful games, so that should be fun. Almost lost my chip because of Nkonkwo and Terry's bad game. Shout out for y'all, though. Got me to the chip and won it. Let's go. Yeah, I out of all the week 17 calls, I don't regret Chicken Conquo. And I told you guys, like, I will lose with Chicken Conquo. I don't care. But it was a bit disappointing. 10 points. 10 points was disappointing, to say the least. But like, it didn't kill you, more than likely. So I mean, I had like a championship that I won that I dropped Zach Ertz and I played Chicken Conquo. And like, that's just like a good example of like playing your studs, not overthinking it. But I mean, Chick had a good game. But yeah, Terry, I mean, I feel like you can't be upset about Terry, like, no matter who you listened to, who you didn't listen to, whatever your situation was. If he had Terry McLaurin and you played him in week 17, like, it was a great matchup. The Falcons secondary was giving up the 26th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers going into that matchup. Good game script. And like, we got the good game script, actually, but AJ Terrell just played great against Terry McLaurin, and it happens, good players have bad games. All right, guys. So the invite is at the very top of the chat. We have 2 spots left. Then we'll get rolling here. Cameron, what's going on? Good to see you, bro. Hello. Congrats on winning a little bit on Underdog. Very, very nice to see. My Underdog teams are awful this year. Nick, Happy New Year to you as well. Oz, back-to-back Super Bowl champ. Thanks, Catch fam. You are welcome and glad to hear it. All right, 2 spots left, ladies and gentlemen. The only thing with doing like the way too early mocks is, we can't run any like auto drafters because they're going to auto draft players that don't make sense. So we got to wait. Great defense from that corner. Yeah, AJ Terrell and Kelsey decided to score 22 points. Yeah. So either you had Kelsey on your bench or you were going up against Kelsey. And yeah, I mean, I get it. But I mean, it just made sense. Mahomes and Kelsey both having big weeks in week 17. It made sense because it was easy to get down on them. And then they showed up when it mattered the most. So these things happen, but all right. Is anyone playing through week 18? I feel like nobody who's in here is playing through week 18. All right, what I can do is, if we don't get 2 more to join in like the next 5 minutes, I can just take players off the board that makes sense for teams 9 and team 10, but I'll give it a couple more minutes here so we can get started and everybody doesn't have to wait around. So we'll just start at 8:40 p.m. Eastern time and go from there. It's not too hard for me to pick players that make sense for 2 additional teams. So I have like a cheat board too that I've been working on. So like I said, once we get what's going to get interesting are like rounds 7 through 10 to see who starts to go off the board. And like I said, if you guys want to select any rookies, just let me know and we'll go from there. You're going to select a kicker and that'll work for now. So interested to see where you guys are valuing players. And like I said, I released that first 4 rounds of a way too early mock, and there's so many different spots where different players could go. You know, really a lot of discussion to be had. And do you think there are a couple players I was a little bit low on, or maybe should have been higher on? But there's also like a lot of players that could go a couple spots in front of or behind each other for sure. So, all right, link is in the chat for anyone who wants to join. We're gonna start in 3 minutes, no matter what. And once we start, that's about it. I'll just select for any empty teams. Oh, the other news from today is that Ezekiel Elliott is getting released by the Cowboys, supposedly asked for a release. So, I mean, it doesn't mean a whole lot, but Dusty Crusty Zeke's going to be out there and available. So, that is the biggest news from today. All right. Jonathan says, playing through week 18, we don't have a playoff. How does that work? You don't have a playoff. So who's in the championship? Like, what is week 18? Like, what are you playing for? How does that work? All right, one more spot. Oz working so he can't join. And also beat the same guy in back-to-back Super Bowls. Very nice. Very nice. That's always a good feeling. Always a good feeling. All right, we got one spot open. We are starting in 2 minutes. Let me make sure everyone knows. Oh, we are full. All right. I'm just going to put it out on Discord and in the sleeper chat that we are starting. And you guys have 2 minutes to pick. So make sure you guys scroll around because it's going to be based on last year's rankings and all that stuff. If you want to select a rookie, just take a kicker off the board and don't you dare take any kickers for any other reason tonight. All right, let's get rolling, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to kick off the draft right now. Thank you guys for your patience. All right, 2 minutes per pick, so take your time, look around, plenty of time for discussion. And like I said, make sure you guys scroll around, maybe even have like a cheat sheet of sorts ready to help you guys out because you will forget about some players. Trust me. All right, Felix, thank you for joining. Let's go. Let's go. And okay, so a little bit different tonight. So that was one thing with the draft that I did that I put out as a video is that one of the feedbacks was that Gibbs was too far back. So I'm not surprised to see him as the first running back gone because, of his age. I do think that it would make a lot of sense for a player like Gibbs to go as the first running back off the board. And then you really look at what he did this year. I mean, double digits every single game. But also, I think a lot of people are going to get a little bit caught up in the fact that week 16 and 17, and really, I think you could argue week 15 as well because Monty was hurt in that game. These point totals with no Monty and just the what if they really do move up even further in terms of how much volume they give to Gibbs next year, what he is able to potentially do with that, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to be going a tad bit earlier, or even as the first running back off of the board. So I'm okay with that. Okay, really here at like the 1.6, like I think you have just a handful of wide receivers And I think this kind of ordering of wide receivers is going to be swapped around. And then the other player who I could see moving up to this area of the draft, who is not a wide receiver, is rookie Ashton Jeanty, dependent on his landing spot. But I will just go with Amon-Ra St. Brown here. I'm okay with CeeDee Lamb. He's off the board now. I'm okay with another wide receiver who will probably be selected next. I'm okay with Ashton Jeanty too, depending on his landing spot. But I will take St. Brown. Just another very solid year. You have Amon-Ra as the wide receiver 3. You have Gibbs as the RB3 going into or coming off of this season. And the thing that you get undoubtedly with Amon-Ra is just that consistency, right? I mean, single digits in 2 games on the season, still had a lot of more touchdowns this year than last year for Amon-Ra, with 12 touchdowns compared to 10 touchdowns the season before. So, solid year, red zone upside, all that good stuff. So completely okay with it. I do believe that Justin Jefferson will be the second wide receiver taken off the board in most circumstances, if not the first. I could see some drafts where JJ ends up going before Jamar Chase, just for the argument of it's hard to repeat as the wide receiver 1 2 years in a row. People brought that up this past year, right? But I really think that JJ and Chase going into next year will be like a 1A, 1B, especially dependent on the quarterback situation for the Vikings. So, all right, one quick note here. Rico Dowdle is Ashton Jeanty. So, I will change that to a kicker. We'll change it to Justin Tucker, just in case somebody does want to draft Rico Dowdle. So, there you go. You can now also draft Rico Dowdle if you want to. But all right, pretty solid first round here. Chase, Gibbs, Bijan, Barkley, which we can come back to. JJ, St. Brown, Lamb, Puka Nacua. I think those will be your first 8 players for a majority of the offseason. I'm not surprised to see Ashton Jeanty gone at the 1.9. And I think the next bunch of players gets interesting for sure. I think the next bunch of players could go in a lot of different orders. So, like I said, we're going to have some other rookies dependent on landing spot that could start to creep up. I don't know about this early, but you got like Ted McMillan, Luther Burden, yeah, maybe Travis Hunter if he is truly a wide receiver. And you've got a lot of running backs as well in this class, but I do think could end up with the right landing spot. I don't know about second round, but Amari and Hampton, Caleb Johnson, right? Dependent on their landing spot, could end up starting to creep into at least the beginning, the 3rd, 4th round. You've got some of those guys projected to go to like the Chargers, for example, the Raiders, for example. If it's the right spot, I do think that they could end up. Then I think those wide receiver like Ted McMillan, projected in a lot of drafts to go to the Patriots, or Luther Burden potentially going to the Commanders, or even vice versa, like in the right spot. You see how early Malik Neighbors went this past year, where Marvin Harrison Jr. went. And for those of you who had the faith in Brian Thomas Jr., where he went in some drafts too, Ladd McConkey, where he went. So, there will be rookies gone as well. All right, I'm back on the board here. This is a weird spot. And like there are so many players right here who I think are worth the selection. I mean, and I won't name them until some of them start to get drafted here, but I think like this is just a really wide open range of players. And certainly a lot of argument for different players right here. And like I don't think that this is too early personally, but I do think we're gonna see Bucky go in the second round for sure. And right now he's one of my favorite values. Like I know we're like 2 days out of the season ending, but still, I think Bucky is a mid second round pick. Is I do think Bucky's ADP will move up as the offseason goes on, so that slightly concerns me. But all right, so yeah, going back to the first round, I mean, we had Gibbs, Bijan, Barkley, and like so I talked about Chase and JJ being like a 1A, 1B type situation. I think those three running backs will also just kind of alternate based on opinion. I think going into next year, one thing that could happen with the Lions that will either not bother you or bother you, whether it's Gibbs or St. Brown or Laporta or Jamison Williams, is the potential, very realistic departure of Ben Johnson as an offensive coordinator. So if Ben Johnson does take a head coaching uh, position elsewhere, how does that impact what we've seen out of this Lions offense? I am personally more worried about Jamison Williams and potentially Sam Laporta. I'm not so worried about Gibbs and Amon Ra, but it will have an impact. It's just going to be only time will tell how drastic that impact is. So there's that. Then I think with Bijan, you kind of have this like question mark, like, especially if the Falcons don't make the playoffs, like what exactly are the Falcons next year under a second year quarterback? Kyle Pitts still just failing us in so many ways. Um, so many ways. Like Drake London, fine. I don't know off the top of my head if Darnell Mooney's under contract through next year or what, but I mean they still have a good offensive line. The defense has a good run defense. I don't know how much that will boil over into next year. But like the defense, the defense is bad. That's good for fantasy. Do more. So um, there's all of that, right? But I think that there will be some question marks around the Falcons offense going into next year, unless Michael Penix, if the Bucks lose this weekend and the Falcons win, and Michael Penix looks really, even if the Falcons lose the first round of the playoffs, if Michael Penix looks really good, that'll create a more positive buzz. But none of that really bothers me for Gibbs or Bijan personally. And then with Barkley, what's going to happen with Barkley is the same exact thing that happened this past offseason. And I don't think that Barkley will replicate what he did this past year next year. But this past year, this past offseason, the two running backs that I talked the most about in the offseason were Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, and maybe Isaiah Pacheco. But people are going to bring up the age, the injuries that he has sustained throughout his career. The offensive line proved itself this year, and I mean the Eagles, if they do one thing right, is they build from within in terms of their offensive line and have they have the best offensive line coach in the NFL, right? And so that doesn't worry me. I don't think it'll worry as many people next year. I mean, people were worried because Kelsey retired, right? Then you got the Jalen Hurts tush push. The Eagles did prove if they're down at the one, they're going to do the tush push. Not going to hand it to Barkley. That is for sure. I mean, Barkley could have had like one of the best seasons ever of like any position. I don't know the exact stats at the top of my head, but the amount of times that the Eagles were down at the one, and or Barkley specifically was down at the one, and then they did the tush push. It's a little alarming. Little alarming. All right, I'm gonna take another running back here. Another running back who wait, is he gone? No, he's not gone. Another young running back, not another rookie running back, but he kind of feels like a rookie, is Chase Brown. So I'll take Chase Brown there. And still a lot to break down here. So we've barely made it past the first couple of picks in terms of discussion. But I do think that Christian McCaffrey, very interesting here. I really think Christian McCaffrey's ADP throughout the offseason is going to be really interesting to watch. But I said it in the video that I put out today, like somebody will still draft Christian McCaffrey. And I'm not saying that's like wrong, but somebody is still going to take that chance, especially if he's going in the third round. I mean, Brees Hall and C-Mac, and I talked about both those guys close to this range in the mock that I put out this morning. Like those two guys are very polarizing in terms of running backs. All right, Speed says MH Jr. over Bowers feels so bad. Yeah, so Bowers, I think he will go earlier than the 3.1. We do see two quarterbacks gone tonight in the second round, and I think Bowers will go in the second round. But I think it's okay. I mean, he's still going to be in the third. It's not a huge difference here. And I also think it's okay if just running backs and receivers go in the second round. Quarterbacks going a little bit earlier than I anticipated. But at this time of year, and we always mock early and throughout the entirety of the offseason just for the discussion. And I'm telling you, if you guys start right away, some people will think it's silly or whatever. And then like you just keep going all the way into August. Like you are always prepared and so much more prepared when the end of August rolls around and you're doing your real drafts. But yeah, this time of year, you always see quarterbacks go earlier. And then as the offseason progresses, they start to slide back until we get to the summertime and they go closer to where they're going to go. But Allen, Jackson, I think will be the first two quarterbacks off the board for sure. I like Daniels as the third quarterback gone, but I still think that Hurts is in that discussion as well. And I think I think those will be your top five quarterbacks: Allen, Lamar, Daniels, Hurts, Burrow going into next season. Now, maybe like I still think Burrow goes in the top five for quarterbacks, but maybe if Higgins is gone, like get a new head coach or something. There's a lot up in the air there for the Bengals this offseason, especially if they don't make the playoffs. But maybe some people would have, some different opinions. But I am glad to see Marvin Harrison Jr. gone a little bit earlier. I don't know that I like him at the 2.9 specifically, personally. But I talked about it in the video put out this morning. Like, I still think that Marvin Harrison Jr. deserves to be drafted going into next year. And I still think he's a number one wide receiver easily on that team. Maybe not the number one pass catcher. That's McBride, right? But I still think that he deserves a selection going into next year within the first 4 rounds, and I do think that he will be better in his second season. And while it's a loose comparison, I talked about, JSN and what he did in his rookie season, the kind of recency bias of JSN after his rookie season compared to what he was when he was being drafted going into 2023, whether it was in dynasty or redraft, and then what we were left with last year, I guess 2 years ago now, right? And then what he did in his second season. So I'm not saying that that's exactly what it's going to look like for Marvin Harrison Jr., but I do think it'll be much better. All right, let's see. Scott, Happy New Year. Thank you for your help. You are welcome. Happy New Year to you. Andrea, I don't want Ben Johnson to go. I don't think anyone does, but I mean, he's stayed a little bit longer than, you know, he could have been gone probably the last 2 years if he really wanted to. Do you see a tight end competing with McBride and Bowers next year? Uh, no. I think that Kittle is the only other name that I've seen in terms of a player that people are a little bit higher on going into next year, believe it or not. Which I'm not saying is right or wrong, but I still personally like Bowers and McBride over Kittle. But with what Kittle did this past year, especially if Purdy's back with the Niners and Kittle's still there, I don't I think Kittle's easily top 5 next year, but I still like Laporta and Andrews. I think those would be my top 5 tight ends going into next year. After that, it gets really murky. You still got Kelsey. You got like Njoku, Jonnu Smith. I mean, it gets real murky. You know, Kincaid, Pitts, Ingram, Goddard, Hawkinson, Ferguson, Freiermuth. Maybe Tucker Kraft moves ahead of some of those guys. Chicken. You know, it's pretty murky. But yeah, for me right now, it's McBride and Bowers. So we'll find out. How do you spell Bijan? BijA. Bijan. Bijan. All right, so I will go ahead and like take one for the team here. I was kind of hoping maybe Lad McConkey or Devonta Smith would slide out here, but J-Dubs is, staying true to form and taking players that I like, which is a good thing. I do like Higgins in this range a lot. But yeah, I'll take one for the team. And for the sake of argument here, I'll take Garrett Wilson off the board easily. Now, there are rumors in terms of Garrett Wilson going into next season. Like, is Garrett Wilson going to be with the Jets? Is he going to be traded? Whatever. Who's a quarterback going to be if he's not traded, if he's still with the Jets? And regardless, I will take a shot on Garrett Wilson in the 4th round. So you kind of look at the other wide receivers in this range. I still think there are plenty of wide receivers worth drafting. But I'm a Garrett Wilson guy, and you guys know me when it comes to players like this. I stay true to them. And, we should not see Garrett Wilson on the same team as Devontae Adams next year. So I think things will be good. I still think kind of like the floor and what we'll get out of Garrett Wilson in full PPR will be fine. So in this kind of area of range, in terms of looking for a second wide receiver, there might be other names that I prefer, like a Devonta Smith or or T. Higgins, maybe even Mike Evans. But I still am not personally worried about Garrett Wilson at this point. Maybe I'm worried about his ceiling, but you guys know in terms of PPR, I will look for players who bring that consistency, and I still think Garrett Wilson can do that. Andrea says she's not drafting CMC. That is fair. Cameron, everyone who plays best ball should be drafting CMC heavy. He will move up to 1st round. I mean, I won't be surprised. And that's like this. We always talk about it this time of year. When you get those kind of off-season discounts, you definitely want to take advantage of them, you know? So there's always certain players who are hurt in the off season or, you know, trade negotiations or this and that. Hold on, let me pause the draft. I think Cameron had to leave. Whatever it may be, you need to take advantage of those situations. Um, we'll let Burrow go off the board. Yeah, I'm trying to make this realistic. He's got 2 wide, so he needs a running back. Let's take Kamara off the board and let's resume. All right. Back on the board, Mr. Skurs. How do you guys value Kamara going into next season? Like, I mean, he was a top 10 running back before he got hurt? Double digits every game but one? I mean, how do you guys feel about Kamara in general going into next year? Third round seems he's worth a shot. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Just sick with it. Says I'm the one who's just sick with it. I always draft a quarterback early. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. I'm okay with that. And you guys, especially if you play in a larger number of leagues, you will see this in certain leagues where people go quarterback early, and even if like we see it every year, we do mock draft after mock draft after mock draft. And then by the time it is time to actually draft, quarterbacks and tight ends have a very different ADP because people want to be sure that they get whomever, right? So I don't have any problem with it. Don't have any problem with it. Speed says James Cook's still being disrespected. I take him over Brees. Yeah, I talked about that in last night's stream and this morning's video, one or the other. But I still like James Cook a lot going into next year. I almost took him over Chase Brown, and I do think that his overall ADP will be higher than what's being reflected in some of these earlier drafts, for sure. So I'm going to go Zay Flowers here. There's kind of a bunch of wide receivers, like a handful of wide receivers that I view in kind of similar fashion in this range that we're getting right now. But I'll take Zay Flowers here happily, Top 25 wide receiver, didn't quite match that upside that we saw between like weeks 5 and 9 this past year. But was consistent for the most part after that, although he didn't do anything in the fantasy championship. I still like Zay Flowers where he's going as the number 1 wide receiver on that team headed into next season. I also do really like Jordan Addison here, who is now gone at the 5.7. Those 2 players I think are looking like a very, very good values. But yeah, Speed, I do agree. I do really like James Cook, RB9 on the season this past year. I think he should be going a little bit higher. I can see Chase Brown, C-Mac, Hall, Bucky. I can see the argument for all these guys over Cook. And like most of the other teams here just went with different positions, obviously. But I think Cook should and will go a bit earlier. But don't forget, I mean, this past year, like James Cook went a little bit like he was going in like the Rashad White type range, right? Lions better give him a blank check and make him the highest paid offensive coordinator. Yeah. I think he's going to be gone. Johnny Smith with Tua is crazy. Yeah, and I don't know. I'll check right now. Johnny Smith contract. I don't know. Yeah, he signed a 2-year deal, so he'll be back with the Dolphins next year. So I right now I'm thinking of Johnny Smith as like one of my favorite value tight ends. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, JSC, what's going on? If Amari Cooper comes back with the Bills, I feel like he's going to go crazy with them next season. So I think he's set to be a free agent. I'm not sure if I'm mistaken. No, I guess he is back with the Bills. If I'm reading that right. Hold on, I'll double check here. Because I thought no, he's set to be a free agent. Yeah, yeah. Disregard my first message or whatever I said there. He is set to be a free agent. So, I he's an interesting player to watch, but I don't know. After what we got this past year, I think I'm good. And I don't really think that he's done anything for the Bills to bring him back. You know? But maybe they do. Maybe they do. But yeah, I just I don't know if I'm there. Even if he's back specifically with the Bills, I have a tough time with that one. Olave / Waddle going to go so cheap. I take shots on them. Yeah, we talked about this over the past 2 days as well. I would rather take a shot on Olave personally because I feel like with Waddle, I have such a sour taste in my mouth. But I would take a shot on Olave. Okay, so Xavier Worthy goes in the 6th round here. I really like Xavier Worthy in this range. Really, really like him. Really like him. I was hoping he would fall. I would be really happy with St. Brown, Wilson, Flowers, and Worthy. I mean, Worthy, here at the end of the season has really separated himself quite a bit in that offense, in my personal opinion. So yeah, I feel quite good about him. All right. This is the point in the draft where I have to actually think a little bit too. But there's some good players available. I think I'm okay. I would proceed with caution with Derrick Henry next year in redraft. I mean, isn't this what we say every year? It just doesn't matter. Um, I I I think he'll fall back in drafts for this reason, for sure. But I just don't know. Like, I mean, he's RB2. I don't know if it's going to be any different next year. I don't. So you're going to look at that. I think the range that's on the screen, like Henry, A-Chain, JT, Kyron, Bucky, Jacobs. Maybe Chase Brown comes into that same tier-ish. But I think those players will be swapped around just based on personal opinion. So I'm not worried about Henry, but do I think he'll repeat as the RB2? I think that's less likely. Less likely. But can he finish as a top 10 running back next year? I think so for sure. All right, so Taylor, let us know what it's Caleb Johnson. Okay, yeah, I think Caleb Johnson is going to be very good. And a lot of people have him kind of projected going to the Chargers potentially, which definitely would impact J.K. Dobbins, of course. But I do think it's a really good landing spot. All right, hold on. Give me I think I'm going with I gotta still have a tough time passing on DJ Moore here. I know once again, like you're kind of like Flowers, Wilson, DJ Moore, like the upside's not incredible here, but the floors feel very safe. And you guys know me. I'm good with that. So um I still think he's the number one receiving option in that offense, regardless of what you think about that offense. And I'm good with DJ Moore here, personally. Don't forget, guys, the way this is set up. I mean, I don't know if it really matters. Just draft who you think's the best. Just draft who you think's the best. But yeah, in terms of Caleb Johnson, if he does end up with the Chargers, I think that's a perfect landing spot. Fits that offense kind of perfectly, I would say. Um, and you look at kind of his profile, right? Some people have Omarion Hampton ahead of Caleb Johnson. Some people have Caleb Johnson in front of Hampton. Everyone has Ashton Genty as the RB1. And then you got like Travion Henderson out of Ohio State, probably be the next running back off the board. And then you got both running backs out of Ohio State. I'm sorry. But and I'm assuming Mr. Freeman's going with one of those running backs. Oh no, he's going with Tet, which I like. I was thinking about taking Tet McMillan off the board. Who we'll talk about in a second here. Or are we going to just go ahead and swap to? But I when it comes to wide receivers in this draft class, you have Tet McMillan out of Arizona and you have Luther Burden out of Missouri. Probably easily, unanimously as the two top rookie wide receivers. It really depends on landing spot for me. But I am kind of leaning towards it depends on landing spot. I have not made up my mind between Ted McMillan and Luther Burden right now in terms of who's 1A and 1B or 1 and 2 for me. And I think you're going to see a lot of mock drafting for those two wide receivers to the Patriots and the Commanders as of right now. But you just never know. You see teams hopping here all the time and landing spots change. And, look at JSN going to Seattle, for example, and things like that. I'll leave Diggs on the board, but I'm going to pause this again. And nobody's taking Travis Etienne. He needs more wide receivers. Who's the most realistic? I think JMO is. Sorry to anyone who wanted JMO. And I guess he needs another running back. So we'll leave Rashad White on the board. All right. Draft is back underway. Just want to make sure it stays as realistic as possible here. And Rashad White is the GOAT. We all know that. So, but yeah, there's a lot to break down when it comes to this rookie draft class. And like I said, over the next week or two, we will be breaking down more and more. We'll be doing some rookie drafts. We'll be doing some dynasty content, everything. And the other, I mean, you got Trey Harris, Isaiah Bond. You got Ohio State's wide receiver. I will mispronounce his last name, but there are some. There's always sleepers at every position too. So, definitely a lot to break down, which we will start to do more and more over the next week or two here on the channel, like I said. So, but in terms of rookies that will impact the first couple rounds before knowing landing spot. Ashton Genty, Ted McMillan, Luther Burden, Caleb Johnson, Omarion Hampton, and then potentially some of those next top wide receivers. So we'll find out. All right, let me get caught back up here with the chat. J-Dub says he likes Chris Godwin at value. I do agree. If Derrick Henry has another season like this one, I'm pretty sure he'll have the most rushing touchdowns ever. I don't know off the top of my head. Most rushing touchdowns. NFL. No, he's far. He's 8th all time. He's 1 touchdown behind John Riggins, 3 behind Jim Brown, 7 behind Walter Payton. Adrian Peterson has 120. Marcus Allen has 123. LT has 145. And Emmitt Smith has 164. 164 is tough to catch. So now he's got some work to do. See, Rico Dowdle does get drafted. Where's Godwin going next year? I mean, it's very much up in the air. And yeah, I mean, it's not good that he got injured. That makes it more shaky. I think you could argue, but I still think he's a top 5, like regardless of offense or defense, a top 5 free agent next year. He will go somewhere and he will get a good contract. So it's tough to say. And there are a lot of teams that could kind of swoop on in here. I mean, you could see like an elite team come in here and go after a player like Godwin or Higgins, but you're going to see more teams be aggressive. The Patriots are like the team that everyone, because Drake May does not look that bad. You know, Patriots are the team that everyone talks about going after a wide receiver. The Commanders have become a popular name in the offseason. The Chargers are another popular one, trying to, that team is kind of right on the cusp, as are the Commanders of being very special. So the Steelers, like they were kind of in some of the talks for Brandon Ayuk and all that stuff. So, they come to mind as well. But you just never know. You just never know. The offseason and free agency is always strange, to say the least. All right, back on the board. And I have no idea who I'm going to draft. Mr. Freeman says he panicked, but I think Jacoby Myers is a good pick there. I kind of need to draft a non-wide receiver. See, I'm really like, I the tier of quarterback after, I like that Baker's gone in the 6 and Mahomes, but this next tier of quarterback for me is very up and down. Very up and down. I think I might take another wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk and Jalen Waddle are very interesting right here. And I think Jaden Reed is very interesting too. But I can't bring myself to draft Jaden Reed. Recency bias is going to be like Jaden Reed has a great playoff performance or something, that might change. But right now I am not feeling the love on Jaden Reed. I do, however, still think Khalil Shakir is a nice selection here. Sorry that took so long, but I am like, I think Jawan Jennings is a good pick too. Is Khalil Shakir? So I want to make sure he's still with the Bills next year. Okay, he is. He's signed through next year. So I like Shakir there. Once again, I have all these players that are just like they give you a floor. Got a lot of wide receiver depth here. All right, I don't need any more wide receivers, but I do think Shakir should be drafted kind of in this range. I looked at Judy too, and like I said, I think Ayuk and Waddle are interesting here, and Jaden Reed, but I don't know if I can bring myself to draft Jaden Reed. All right. JSC, I drafted Josh Allen with the 7th overall pick in my redraft home league. Don't regret it. Hey, you got Gibbs in the 2nd, McBride in the 4th, Puka in the 5th. I mean, those all sound like pretty dang good values. All right, so Jake Moody's gone. J-Dubs, let us know which rookie you're snagging. I will lose track. Amari is so old, I'd still be in and on Shakir for PPR. Agreed. And Amari should be the alpha, but he has not been used that way. You know? I love 0 Derrick Henry if he's the first rounder. If he repeats what he did, then he's the greatest running back ever. I mean, I just feel like this discussion with Henry's the same thing every season, you know? He got hurt in 2021, but outside of that, since 2018, he's been a top 15 running back every year, and he's been a top 8 running back every year except for one, not including when he got hurt in 2021. When he got hurt in 2021, he played 8 games, had 937 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. So, I mean, I you're not going to get like these big explosive plays out of Henry all the time, but I still think he can be very productive within that offense. That's the other thing. Like he's not on the Titans offense. He's on one of the best offenses in the league. So I'm still okay with him being the end of the first round pick. All right, D-Dub says it's Omari and Hampton gone. Good pick. Good pick. I don't know for me. Like the only other rookie I think should really go before we know landing spots is Luther. But I mean, you guys can pick maybe Travis Homer, but you guys can pick whatever you want. Don't care. The world is yours. But yeah, this range of quarterbacks: Stroud, Richardson, Prescott, Murray, Love, Birdie, Tua, Goff. I think Goff will go higher next year. It's an interesting range of QBs. And I think tight ends right here are really weird too. Kelsey, Hawkinson gone. Kincaid, Pitts, Ingram, Ferguson, Goddard. You know me, when it comes to off-season time, I'm just sitting back. I'm letting the quarterbacks and tight ends situate themselves. And then I'll be going late round quarterback. And I purposely didn't say Bo Nix because like the later round quarterback that I will be targeting next year will undoubtedly be Bo Nix. But Bo Nix is now gone. A lot of interesting wide receivers. And how do we feel about Ricky Pearsall after what we saw on Monday Night Football? All right, I have to pick a running back. And all the good rookie running backs that I think are worth drafting are gone. So I was kind of hoping that Amari and Hampton would fall here, just for the sake of argument. You guys know. I mean, and you don't have to answer right away if you're like eyeing somebody that you don't want to talk about. But I think I just have to pick DeAndre Swift here. I just don't know if is there anybody better available than DeAndre Swift? I won't go down the list here, but yeah, I mean, I don't love that. But you guys know if anyone needs to draft DeAndre Swift, it's me. Speed, I need to get hip on the rookie running backs. We will be doing some content, like I said, over the next week or two. So do not worry. Albert, what's up? Thoughts on Ashton Genty and redraft? It depends on his landing spot, but I think he'll probably be a first rounder. I mean, Bijan was a top 5 pick, going to a team with a 1,000-yard rusher and Tyler Algier. And, a lot of people drafted Bijan ahead of Christian McCaffrey, myself included. So, he goes to Cowboys. Yeah. He's going to go to a place where he's a clear-cut RB1. Sure. And actually, I don't know how much it's even going to really depend on landing spot. So, Caleb Williams will be a top 10 quarterback next season. This will be the cheapest we'll be able to get him. I don't know about top 10. And I think it's going to really depend on what happens in the offseason with the Bears. And yeah, I don't know about top 10, but I do think that Caleb will be improved. And you really look at Caleb Williams this past year, he's thrown 1 interception since week 6. He still has thrown for over 3,300 yards. He'll end up throwing at least 20 touchdowns on the season. He gets a lot of unprecedented hate. And, there are issues here, but we also scrutinize the quarterback position more than ever going into the NFL. Quarterbacks need more time, and it's hard, right? You look at Jaden Daniels, you're like, quarterbacks don't need more time. What are you talking about? But every situation is a little bit different. And I do think that more quarterbacks should have more time to develop before we declare that they're awful or this and that and everything. And, bad offensive line, but they're not the worst offensive line in the league, believe it or not. And they're definitely bad in terms of, and I'm leaving those 2 picks. Ayuk and Pittman's fine at this range. They're definitely not great in pass protection, but there are worse offensive lines out there. And there are a lot of issues in terms of some decision making at times for Caleb Williams. And the scheme has not been great. The scheme improved once they changed offensive coordinators, but it still hasn't been good. But you still have seen some moments, and it wasn't just against, the Panthers and the Jags in weeks 5 and 6. There were some other good moments and good enough games, but I do agree that he will be improved next year. Right now he was the quarterback 15 through the 17 weeks. So, and that's hard, right? Because you have a couple quarterbacks who did miss time. Tua was not a top 15 quarterback, for example. Jordan Love is quarterback 16. Dak went to IR. But still, he's going to finish the year as a top 15 quarterback. So I think that's doable again for sure. The problem in terms of fantasy for Caleb this year was the floor was awful. He couldn't bring a safe floor. So when you were getting those good games, it just wasn't even worth it. What's the difference in ADP with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze? Well, yeah, it depends on if Keenan Allen comes back. But I still think DJ Moore is the number 1 pass catcher. My opinion. All right, I'm going late round quarterback, late round tight end. Oh, gosh. I think there's 2 quarterbacks who I think stand out in this range for me. Maybe 3, maybe 4. But they all have some sort of question mark. Maybe 5, actually. What tight ends are available? See, there's just no tight end here that separates for me. there's just no one that separates here for me. I'm not drafting Pitts. I'm shaky on Evan Ingram, shaky on Ferguson. Like there's value in maybe all those guys. I'm not touching Pitts. Goddard, I'm shaky on. It's tough. But yeah, there are quite a few quarterbacks here that I think are worth drafting. I'll just go Goff, but there are a lot of quarterbacks here that I think are worth drafting. Why are people drafting kickers? They're taking kickers in place of rookies. Yeah. Taking kickers in place of rookies, which is something you'll see throughout the offseason until rookies are added. So there's just no other way to really do it. Speed, I take McMillan over Godwin. Yeah, I forgot about McMillan in this draft. He falls to the 8.10, and I think McMillan is a really good value. Jacoby over Waddle is so crazy to me. Is it, though? I feel like it's not that crazy. I mean, what is Waddle? He's finishing the year as a wide receiver 51. Myers is the wide receiver 36. And Myers has been as consistent almost. I don't know. I mean, Waddle's first 2 years were much better. Don't get me wrong, but over the past 2 years, the better fantasy wide receiver has been Myers. And yeah, Myers isn't a true number one option because Bowers is there, but he is the number one wide receiver compared to Waddle, who has Hill in front of him and Smith and A-Chain getting volume. But I mean, Waddle, like we saw him get back on track in weeks 12, 13, and 14, but it's just the same old story. And like the floor this year for Waddle was god awful. I personally don't have a lot of interest in drafting him. I don't know if Hill's going to, I don't know if Hill's going to be traded, but it could happen. Yeah, Mike Evans fell a bit further back tonight in comparison to, like, I think he went in the second round last night. Hear me out. Giants swap first round picks with the Vikings, and Giants also get JJ McCarthy and some additional help. Vikings get GNT. I don't think it'll happen. Jalen Warren feels slept on. Yeah. And is Najee Harris gone? I don't know if he's gone for sure, but I think he's set to be a free agent. Aaron Jones is also, well, I know Aaron Jones for sure is, but I'm trying to look right now. Steelers, yeah, Najee Harris will be set to be a free agent. So Warren could be a really good value, but it depends on if they bring Najee back or not. Yeah, if he does end up being the RB1, I don't hate that. Bo Nix over Dak and Lawrence is crazy? Nah. No way. I mean, I was pretty high on Bo Nix before it was like cool to be high on Bo Nix, but I mean, Nix is finishing the fantasy season as the quarterback 9. You know, he's going to have Sutton, he's going to have Mims, he's going to have Franklin. They may add another wide receiver. They need to focus on the run game more than anything, but Bo Nix is the exact type of quarterback that I want to draft. He's going to be a bit devalued, just like my most drafted quarterback in Underdog last year was Baker Mayfield. So I think it's a great value, and I would not take him. I would not take Dak or T-Law over him. I don't hate Dak going into next year. I'm a little worried about T-Law, but I would take Bo Nix over either of them for sure. All right, who's my tight end gonna be? Why do I want to draft Chicken Conquo so bad right now? Pitts, Ingram, Ferguson, Goddard. I'll just take Goddard. Gross. Sam Darnold. I mean, that's a good question too, Chase. What's up, Chase? He doesn't go tonight so far, but I think that Sam Darnold, if he's back with the Vikings, is also a very solid pick. But yeah, we see Drake May gone. I like Herbert. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks right here. I still like Jordan Love and Tua, but they both kind of have question marks. Like Jordan Love's floor this year was awful. Awful. If you start him in the fantasy championship, you knew that. And like we never really got back to the ceiling. He had 26 points in week 6 and 31 in week 4. He got 21 points in week 11. Like outside of those 3 games, he had 18 or less points in every game. And they relied on the run game so much that it really hurt him. And I like Tua, but the Dolphins feel like a big question mark going into next year as well. And now Tua's hurt with the hip injury, right? But I like those 2 guys. I still like Kyler a bit here too. I think like Herbert, Bo Nix, Goff, even Purdy, I feel better about, but I would still think Kyler's close to this range. I mean, he's still the quarterback 11 on the year. I like Dak here too. Stroud's going to be really interesting. Stroud and Richardson are very hard to take a look at. But yeah, then you do have T-Law, Caleb Williams, Darnold. Where is he going to go if he's back with the Vikings? I think he's closer to that Purdy and Goff range for sure. Then you got a lot of weird names, a lot of weird names. Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, Geno. Who's going to be the Steelers quarterback? What about Bryce Young? That's really it. But, that's a whole strange tier that will have some value in like best ball drafts. But outside of that, I'm not sure. All right. I forgot about Tajay Spears. I was meaning to target Tajay Spears this whole draft. I honestly might like Tajay going to next year over Swift. Did Pollard even get drafted? Yeah, 6.3. Okay. Recency bias, Bo Nix equals Mac Jones 2.0. Mac and cheese. I don't know if I quite feel the same. Mac Jones was the quarterback 18 his rookie season. So I don't know if I quite feel the same. And I feel like I like the situation a lot more for Bo Nix. The numbers are not crazy different, so I will give you that. But Bo Nix does have far more rushing upside, 383 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. But we do look at the numbers in their rookie seasons. 3,800 passing yards for Mac Jones, 3,400 for Bo Nix, 22 passing touchdowns, 13 picks for Mac Jones, 25 touchdowns, 12 picks for Bo Nix. But for me personally, the eye test has been much better for Bo Nix. But I don't think that anyone was taking Mac Jones that early going into his sophomore season. Plus, I like the system a lot more for Bo Nix with Sean Payton at the helm as opposed to whatever the heck we got out of the Patriots. So, rather have a Browns running back over Swift. The Swift pick was kind of a panic. Ladd McConkey or Cortland Sutton. It's Ladd for me. It is Ladd for me. But I still like Cortland Sutton. I always like Sutton at his value. Can see Sutton becoming wide receiver 2 next year and the Broncos investing on another wide receiver 1. Well, I still think that Marvin Mims is like I think Marvin Mims is going to become a big part of this offense. But I won't be surprised if they add another wide receiver either. Still being on Ben Sinnott, there's no way Zach Ertz repeats what he did again. I mean, yeah, Ertz had a great season. Great kind of security blanket for Jaden Daniels, but I do agree that um I I mean, like, would I be completely surprised if Ertz is productive next year? No. Um, would I be surprised if he completely fell off? No. I'm kind of back and forth on Ben Sinnott. I really liked Ben Sinnott coming out, going into the year, and his potential as a rookie, but I worry about him for some reason. He just has gotten very limited snaps this past year, so maybe that's part of it. You know, um, he's only had 5 catches this year. So we'll see. Who's Jake Moody supposed to be? The 7.11. That was J Dubs. And I'll tell you, that was Omarion Hampton. I lost track of the rookies. Hawkinson already looking like a value. Yeah, I think whatever Hawkinson does this coming week, and through the playoffs could be a strong indicator of that. I know he's coming off the injury this past year, but he still was relatively inconsistent. But yeah, if he has a solid game in week 18, which is a tough matchup against the Lions, and then, does stuff in the playoffs, I still think he's going to go. I mean, I think after Kelsey makes sense. I think that tier tight end is very shaky. Absolutely draft Rome over DJ at the value. I mean, yeah, that's fine. I always encourage you guys to go look for that value, right? So I'm okay with that. Plus, we could see, Rome Odunze take a big step forward in year 2, especially if Keenan Allen is not back, which I don't anticipate he'll be back. Are people really drafting Johnny Smith over Kelsey? Yeah, I think Kelsey's value will really go down. It's kind of tough. Kelsey was still solid. He was the tight end 9. So he's still very solid on the season. But it's tough. I mean, Johnny Smith is going to be back with the team. He was a tight end 4, same system, same quarterback. I mean, the same thing with Kelsey, but I think it just comes down to personal preference. I think for me, once we get after Mark Andrews, so like Kittle, McBride, Bowers, Laporta, Andrews, I think it's really up in the air right now. It comes down to personal preference. But I think that Smith, Kelsey, and Njoku are the next tier. CMC in the 3rd is worth the risk all day. I don't disagree. Off-season God squads, you gotta love it. Surprised at 4th round Devonta and Evans. I'm surprised at Evans. I'm not surprised about Devonta. You guys know my feelings about how much disrespect he gets every year. But I think that they were both good values there. Garando slept on, literally runs a 4.340, and CMC is no guarantee. Yeah, I mean, he played well. Didn't score against the Lions, but he does look good in that system. But I guess like you look at that team, it's just very like Jordan Mason will be back next year as well. So I don't know. I think you're just kind of riding the hot hand, but there is definitely potential for Garando to take that step ahead of Jordan Mason. And Garando will play in week 18. So you just never really know with the Kyle Shanahan offense. Like before Christian McCaffrey was there, it was always just kind of riding the hot hand. So I'm not necessarily disagreeing. But it'll become a little bit more clear later in the offseason who the RB handcuffs are, right? And he might be a very solid one. Sign me up for this wide receiver core, but it won't stick as ADP's move. No. I mean, I could see that maybe happening. But I think Ladd will move up in ADP. I'm telling you, Devonta is always disrespected. I won't be surprised if he goes right there in some leagues. Yeah, people going after Rashee Rice pretty aggressively. Which I'm okay with. But you do bring up a good point. He might face a suspension next year. Jake Moody automatically takes your team. Jahmyr Gibbs over Barkley. I'm okay with it. We talked about it at the beginning of the stream. I'm okay with it. I think that Gibbs, Bijan, Barkley will go just based on personal opinion, as always. I think with Gibbs, you could see people be higher on him just because we saw less touches to Monty at the end of the season due to the injury. And for that reason, people, we saw Gibbs with 25 plus points in 3 straight games, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. And people will look at that and say, once again, as they did going into this past year, with Gibbs with more volume, what does it look like, right? And with Bijan, we saw Bijan at his full potential this year. And then with Barkley, people will bring up the age, the injury history throughout his career, everything that got brought up this past season off season about Barkley. So, you don't always have to draft the wide receiver 1 or the running back 1 from the previous year as the first running back or wide receiver off the board, So, and very rarely do running backs or wide receivers repeat as a wide receiver or running back 1 the following season. So I don't have any personal issue with it. And like I always say, every single year in the first round, decide, are you going running back or wide receiver? What is your ADP? And who's your guy? Just go get your guy. I think BTJ moves up. Yeah, so in the mock that I did, I had him at like the 1.9, I think. I think I'm okay with BTJ at the 2.4. But yeah, I mean, you got Josh Allen there, A-Chain. I think BTJ should be drafted before those 2 players. Yeah. I'm okay with BTJ as a late first. But yeah, BTJ, Neighbors are the 2 names that I think throughout the offseason could move up into the first round for sure. For sure. Waddle finally where he belongs, 8th round. Yeah. Yeah. I'm done. I'm not touching Waddle. He might, honestly, in the 8th round, I would probably draft Waddle. But even there, Reed, McMillan, Waddle, Ayuk, those are tempting. Seems it won't be Tampa Bay. Where would you love to see Godwin in 2025? Personally, as a Commanders fan, I'd love to see him with the Commanders, but very rarely do things work out this way. Have a good night, Andrea. Happy New Year's. Waddle will have 1,000 receiving yards next year. I certainly hope so. Played in 14 games this year and had 700. So, that's not very encouraging, but I think the bigger issue is have teams just completely figured out this offense and this scheme under Mike McDaniel, and do they need to change it, and what does that look like? But we'll find out. I've been I've been on the Waddle train for a while now, and once those wheels fall off, it's hard to get back on. But at value, Waddle in the 8th round, sure. Reed, McMillan, Waddle, Ayuk right there. I'll take any of those wide receivers in the 8th round. For sure. I think Godwin will be a Panther or Patriot. Those both make sense. So also in the T. Higgins theoretical landscape. Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco. I don't think Hunt's back with the team. He's going to need a new contract. So, I'm very torn on Isaiah. I mean, I'd rather draft Isaiah Pacheco, but I'm not really like, and I've been very high on Isaiah Pacheco. You guys know that. But yeah, I just like he goes in the 4th tonight. I think I'd draft Kamara, Chuba, Walker, Dobbins if they don't draft a running back, Brian Robinson, Tracy before Pacheco. I want it to be Pacheco, and I like a full off season. See how far the Chiefs go in the playoffs, but a full off season. You know, I mean, don't like he has a rib injury right now. He's expected to play week 18 or whatever, or at least be okay for the playoffs. But I don't know if he came back fully healthy, but something's just been off. So I don't be too down on Pacheco, but I am very concerned about Pacheco. Godwin on the Panthers would be 3rd rounder, if not higher. Yeah, because I don't know what Thielen's contract looks like. Have a good night, J-Dubs. Thank you for hanging out and drafting. Run CMC almost died with Fairbairn and the Colts, but we won. Thank God. Thanks a lot for your great advice and keen analysis. Wish you the best and your channel. Let's go. Congrats on winning your championship, even with the Colts defense in Fairbairn, and love to see it, bro. Congrats. Thank you for the kind words. Godwin on the Panthers would have all of Tampa throwing up their mouths. That's true, especially since Tampa Bay secondary sucks. So. All right, guys, that should do it for tonight. There's another look and some good discussion on a way too early 2025 fantasy football mock draft. So thank you guys who drafted tonight. Thank you guys for the discussion. Thank you guys for another fantastic draft. Still have plenty of plans throughout this week for the channel. So make sure you guys are tuning in. And we'll keep rolling out some content and different streams as the week progresses and as we move into our off-season content and all of that good stuff. So that'll do it for tonight. And rule of thumb, stream any D versus Winston. I'll take it. Probably for the rest of his life, right? But yeah, that'll do it for tonight. Great draft tonight. Thank you guys so much for doing this. This was a ton of fun. And like I said, we got plenty of content planned over the next week or so. And we'll start moving into more, rookie analysis and dynasty stuff. But still good to get some of this redraft content in at the same time. So thank you guys for hanging out, and everyone have a great night and happy New Year's to all you guys. Thank you guys for such a great year here on the channel. Appreciate you guys so much. And we got plenty of content planned for the off season, so do not worry about that. So with that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch. And